All right. Hello and welcome to the Middle East Forum Speaker Webinar Series. I'm Stacey Roman and I will be moderating this discussion today. We're pleased to have Nick Larigakis, President of the American Hellenic Institute, an American lobby to strengthen ties with Greece and Cyprus, join us to discuss Congress counters Turkey. Mr. Larigakis will speak for 10 to 15 minutes and open it up for questions. Should you wish to ask a question, please use the Q&A box to locate at the bottom of your screen to type out your question. And with no further ado, I'll turn the discussion over to Mr. Nick Larigakis.
Well, thank you, Stacey. It's a pleasure to be here with you and the Middle East Forum. And I'd like to also thank Dr. Daniel Pipes for the warm invitation to be with you here today and to congratulate him for all his fine work and advocacy and bringing awareness to the issues in the Eastern Mediterranean. I've been asked to present a few minutes here as to my opinions as to what all of a sudden has changed the opinions and the posture on Capitol Hill regarding Turkey over the course of the last couple of years in particular, where we've seen certainly a proliferation of legislation and other actions regarding the actions of Turkey and one Mr. Erdoğan. But before we do, I think it's important to realize that the area that we're talking about and specifically where Turkey occupies and aware of which is being the most egregious in terms of its provocative nature is the Eastern Mediterranean. And the Eastern Mediterranean, of course, is an area where Greece and Cyprus occupy and where Turkey has been the most provocative of all. But this is an area that's very significant for the importance of U.S. geostrategic interests, NATO interests, and overall, of course, Western interests. In addition to being a significant area of transit for commerce and energy, Greece in particular is also home to the Suda Bay military facilities, which is a plethora of military facilities, of which I had an opportunity to visit on many occasions, in addition to which there is a American naval base there as well. To illustrate how important this facility is, we saw Secretary Pompeo on his most recent visit to Greece just about a month ago, go and pay a visit to this particular facility. So Greece and Cyprus, which is equally important for many, many, many reasons. And we've seen an upgrade of the relationship between the United States and Cyprus in terms of defense cooperation and overall elevation of the relationship. And Mr. Secretary Pompeo visited there as well in early September. And Cyprus, of course, has been characterized as a stationary aircraft carrier, and which is only 300 miles off the coast of Cyprus. And of course, the relationship that exists between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel that's been developed in a mutual beneficial way for all parties in the region are exceptionally important. These three countries are the frontline states for the promotion of peace and stability in this very turbulent area called the Eastern Mediterranean, where we've heard people call the arch of instability from the Libyan coast all the way to the Albanian coast. We have three countries that are democratic in nature, are promoters and supporters of the rule of law and international law, have the same values as the United States and the West, and help to project and promote peace and stability in this region. Therefore, it is critically important for this region to remain so, for this and for so much more. But unfortunately, there's an actor here. There's a country called Turkey that continues to be exceptionally proactive in terms of its negative posture and provocative nature, and which threatens the peace and stability of this very important region. As I stated, and I'll say it over and over again, U.S. geostrategic and Western interest in this region. And although the Congress has acted very aggressively regarding Turkey in the last couple of years, I submit to you it should have been doing so all along for many years. And although Congress, and I would say the overall U.S. government position regarding Turkey has been sort of like long on rhetoric, but short on action. But there was one very important action that took place in 1975 to 78, which is worth repeating here today. And that is when this organization, the American Hellenic Institute, was founded by then its founder, Gene Rosides. we were able to impose an arms embargo because of Turkey's illegal violation of invasion of the island of Cyprus, which violated the Foreign Assistance Act of the United States Congress. It was that principle that we used to be able to use as the catalyst to pass that legislation. Congress should not be in the business of violating its own laws, and it should call out those countries who do so. Unfortunately, Turkey continues to divide the island nation of Cyprus, continues to have 43,000 occupying troops to this day, and has only increased its provocative actions there by virtue of sending illegal ships into Cyprus's EEZ, and by also, most recently, in violation of UN Security Council resolutions, calling for the reopening of an area called Varosha, which was fenced off in 1974 in a beach town in northeast Cyprus. We can't get into all the details, but the point is Turkey continues to be provocative there. Turkey has continued to violate Greece's territorial integrity for the better part of 4 decades in terms of violations of its maritime borders and its airspace. Just last year alone, we saw 4,300 violations of Greek airspace by American-made F-16s, which again are in violation not only of the Foreign Assistance Act, but of the Arms Export Control Act, in that these planes, these assets which are marked US made, cannot be used in an offensive nature. In 1995, we also saw the elimination of US grant aid to Turkey. That was another action-oriented procedure by the Congress then. But we have to fast forward now a little bit in what has transpired over the course of the last couple of years to be able to create the kind of situation on Capitol Hill that we see this action regarding Turkey. Well, in my opinion, it's one person, and that was evangelist Pastor Brunson, who was arrested in 2016 on trumped-up charges in Turkey. And then in 2018, you had 3 U.S. senators in the names of Tom Tillis, Gene Sheehan, and James Lankford, who took up the cause of one Pastor Brunson. And then that was elevated to that of the President Trump's attention, and sanctions were threatened to Turkey, and ultimately Pastor Brunson was released. In my opinion, that is what started the ball rolling. Shortly after that, and his provocative nature, and in terms of his overall plan of being the hegemonic personality of the Middle East and Eastern and Southeastern Mediterranean through his blue homeland policy doctrine, Mr. Erdoğan decides that he is now going to go and purchase the S-400 missile defense systems from Russia to the tune of $2.4 billion, and then put it in danger, the operability and compromising national security interest of the U.S. and NATO, as these items are not interoperable, and also because of the fact that Turkey was part of the development program of the F-35, and also was to buy up to 100 F-35 planes. Well, the last thing you needed was to be able to have the F-35 technology being available to Russia and the S-400. So immediately, Turkey was violating the Counter-Americans Adversary Through Actions Act, or CATSA, and by this action and other action, Turkey was suspended from the F-35 program. Although sanctions should be imposed on Turkey, and the Congress has called for this, the administration has refused to do so. We have seen also the Armenian Genocide Resolution, something that the Armenian community has tried for years to get on Capitol Hill passed, but yet because of these actions and others by Turkey, we saw an overwhelming support of almost unanimous votes of both chambers of the U.S. Congress in passing of those particular resolutions. Another watershed legislation that was passed within the context of the National Defense Authorization Act in 2019 was the Eastern Mediterranean Security and Energy Partnership Act. This particular act, although its main focus was on the promotion and strengthening of the U.S.-Greece-Cyprus relationship, specifically as it relates to energy, there were elements within the context of this legislation that also asked the Secretary of State to provide to the pertinent committees on Capitol Hill, whereas by what incidences in the exclusive zone of Cyprus and the sovereign territory of Greece and the Aegean Sea had been violated. Well, I didn't name Turkey by name, but there's only one country that does this, and that is Turkey. And then we saw Turkey, of course, also invade northeast Syria and create the more problems there for our friends, the Kurds, who were instrumental in defeat of ISIS and had the potential for the resurrection of ISIS to come back in full force. That was another area where it created momentum for more proliferation as it related to congressional action on Capitol Hill. And only recently, as in yesterday, we saw Senator Menendez and 6 other Democratic senators introduce resolutions calling for Secretary Pompeo to detail Turkish human rights violations and fundamental freedoms in Turkey and how they relate also to the dispute between Armenia and Azerbaijan, including the use of American-made F-16s and the potential violations under the Arms Export Control Act, which we agree that is definitely taking place. So overall, this and the entire rogue nature and posture of Mr. Erdoğan, from Libya to Syria to Armenia to obviously what's going on in Greece and Cyprus on a continuing basis. This August, we saw a standoff of almost 50 days in Greek maritime waters where Greece lays claim and where Turkey sent illegally, in violation of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, a research vessel called the Oryx Reis to come into survey in Greek waters, and it forced the Greek Navy to send practically its entire naval force there to make sure that Turkey didn't cross the proverbial red line, if you will. Although in September, the ship was removed, it now was brought back in again just a couple of weeks ago through a NAVTEX, which was supposed to expire yesterday, and it continues to be extended until the 27th. And so as we sit here today talking, there is a standoff in the Eastern Mediterranean off the coast of Costa within 6 plus nautical miles. The Greek and Turkish naval forces are staring down each other, where tensions are running high, and the potential for war is unfortunately high. And if that were to happen, of course, it threatens, obviously, the instability of the area, and one that the United States, NATO, or the West can ill afford to reach that particular level. So for this and for so much more, it's only obvious that these kind of actions on Capitol Hill have been forthcoming. There's been, like I said, numerous resolutions, including legislation calling for Turkey to be removed from NATO, and also to reevaluate the U.S.-Turkish relationship, which we agree. We feel today Turkey is not a faithful, loyal member of NATO under any definition of what NATO stands for, and that whole relationship needs to be reevaluated. Even your own president, Daniel Pipes, has written on this issue, in particular, Turkey's removal from NATO. So we advocate for this, and we hope the next Congress will continue in this regard to continue to evaluate and to reevaluate, rather, the whole relationship with Turkey, and to try to rein in Mr. Erdoğan. Appeasement should not be the guiding force regarding Mr. Erdoğan, which, in my opinion, unfortunately, has continued to permeate for many, many decades, and it needs to cease and desist. Like I said, the rhetoric is good, but the action is more important and much needed. And to the point regarding appeasement, it's important to note that even under how we were trying to deal with Turkey and the S-400 issue, it's incredible, in my opinion, just incredible that you had 2 senators, leading senator and Senator Lindsey Graham, who spoke specifically about the S-400s in terms of if they were not to be used operationally, they were not to be engaged operationally, that we should provide in exchange a free trade deal with Turkey. And then you had Senator John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, even make a ridiculous claim where he proposed the United States should purchase the Russian S-400 missile systems to assist U.S.-Turkey relations, which, by the way, if that were to happen, then we would be in violation of the CATS legislation in purchasing Russian-made systems. I'll leave it at that. I see my minutes are about up, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you so much for that. The first question we have quite a few. Do you see any scenario where Turkish membership in NATO would be suspended? And what would be the practical ramifications of this?
It would seem to me that they should be suspended, just by the fact that they invaded Cyprus in 1974 and continue to occupy Cyprus today. And I always made the argument, excuse me, that since Turkey is a member of NATO, the 43,000 illegal occupation military on Cyprus, you can claim that they are a NATO country, NATO army. So what do you have? You have a NATO army occupying a member of the European Union. If that isn't enough to suspend Turkey out of NATO, then I don't know what is. I know there's no mechanism, but I believe there are elements within the Vienna Convention that do allow for some provisions potentially for the removal of Turkey from NATO. But if they cannot be completely suspended, well, then the dealings with Turkey at all levels of NATO should be toned down considerably.
Thank you. So isn't the fear that Turkey will move further along and align with Russia and China? And how might the U.S. isolate Turkey from doing this?
Well, again, I mean, the United States' two main pillars of foreign policy, it seems to be Russia and China. But Russia and China are not just isolated within their borders of where Russia is and where China is in Asia. Both are now players, frankly, in the Eastern Mediterranean. And as such, the United States needs to actively engage itself back within the region of the Eastern Mediterranean and not, abdicate that responsibility of this very important region. I think there are some signs that that's happening. Look, you have to gauge how important Turkey is to your interests. And sometimes you may just have to let go. Even during the Cold War, everybody was talking about what an important role Turkey is playing regarding the Cold War. I can come up with many arguments where they were not, including assisting the Soviet Union at that time. So somebody is an ally and somebody is a friend to you as long as they allow themselves to avail themselves of that. If they don't, and Turkey has proven time and time again where they are not, then you need to, not to say you dismiss them completely. They're still an exceptionally large country. They do occupy a geographic region. They have the second largest army in NATO. All of that is well understood. But their leadership is not taking country down that path. And ultimately, I don't think Turkey and Russia has any love lost there, where ultimately they can work together on a mutual basis. They'll work with each other where they feel there are certain interests. I mean, there are opposite sides in Syria. There are opposite sides on Libya. So it's a tense relationship. The China issue, there's been talk about China coming in and investing into Turkey. China is looking obviously for footprints into Western Europe, into the Middle East. They could view Turkey in that regard. But again, I don't think Turkey is willing necessarily to completely align himself with these two countries.
Understood. So you discussed ISIS briefly. What is the nature of the relation between ISIS and Turkey?
Well, I'm not sure what it is today, because I'm not sure to what degree, today ISIS is even, a formidable essence the way it was just a few years ago. However, there's more than enough to indicate that unfortunately ISIS was being supported by Turkey by virtue of allowing it back and forth open access over its borders, by providing it with medical assistance, safe haven. There was even talk of there were centers there, recruiting centers for ISIS within Turkey, and also the so-called funding of Turkey through things that were going back and forth that were able to facilitate their economy. So in essence, you can argue that Turkey was a supporter and a founder of ISIS in some ways. Today, I don't know what it is because I just don't think ISIS is what it used to be.
Thank you. What do you think the outlook is for the division of Cyprus with the election of a hardliner in the north and Erdoğan in Ankara? What role might the pandemic play there?
Well, I'm not sure what role the pandemic itself can play there other than what it does anywhere around the world. So I wouldn't necessarily put that in any context. The numbers are relatively minor overall, but obviously the population of the island is much smaller than, say, the 330 million we have in the United States. But certainly, Mr. Tartar, that was just recently, and I use this term loosely, but in quotes, elected as the Turkish Cypriot representative, because I can't really claim that these were legal elections. This is a country that's not recognized by anyone other than Turkey. It's an illegal entity. And therefore, how can you have elections on something that's illegal? Also, the fact that you had approximately 300,000 illegal settlers who are technically never eligible to, quote, vote within the context of a Turkish Cypriot leader, and of which Turkey has transferred to the island from the mainland to change the demographics of the island. You can claim that it was these individuals who potentially created the scenario for Mr. Tartar to be the leader. But he is a hardliner. He is definitely aligned with Mr. Erdoğan and his policies. He believes in a two-state solution, which is totally unacceptable for the final solution of Cyprus. And through him as a proxy, he's been the catalyst for the illegal movement to open up the Varosha fenced-off area that I spoke about it in my opening statement.
Understood. Do you see Turkey intervening militarily in Azerbaijan on the side of Armenia?
I don't think they would probably do it, where boots on the ground. But as we saw also in Libya, they could use proxies. So that is a possible scenario. I think because of the Russian element there as well, in a little bit more pronounced way than maybe even in Libya, I think they may deter them to a certain degree. But it's not necessary for Turkey to military engage by providing them, with resources via military hardware and funding. That in itself could be enough, unfortunately, that Turkey might be willing to do. I just hope, again, it's an area we don't want to see continue to be explosive. Peace and stability is what we need. And Turkey continuously, unfortunately, everywhere and around the region, continues to stick its finger in and to create turmoil as opposed to try to create peace and stability. Everywhere they get engaged in, there's turmoil. There's no potential for peace and stability.
Do the Turkish residents of North Cyprus favor unification?
Well, let's put it this way. First of all, we don't refer to it as North Cyprus unless you put it in quotes. We refer to it as the occupied area. I think if you were to, I think that the indigenous Turkish Cypriots would absolutely support reunification. Mr. Akinci, the previous leader of the Turkish Cypriot, was unseated by Mr. Tartar in this last quote election, definitely was a promoter of unifying the island. The Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots lived together in mixed villages for many, many years. And if they were allowed, under their own accord, to be able to settle whatever outstanding disputes they have, I think they would be able to do it. But as long as Turkey continues to be the orchestrator of what they want on the island, those issues, what Turkey's interests are not the interest of the people of the Republic of Cyprus. And as long as Turkey continues to make demands to have a military presence there and to get involved into the daily machinations of the Turkish Cypriots, that cannot happen. And it's up to the European Union, the international community, and led by the United States to force that action and to have Turkey, stay out of Cyprus. We will do that. That's the $64,000 question.
So you don't think there's any room to compromise on the control of the ocean around some of the very small?
Well, I mean, the Republic of Cyprus has said they'll be willing to speak with Turkey regarding its exclusive economic zone. At the end of the day, Turkey is approximately 60 miles off the northern coast of Cyprus, and therefore there would have to be a delimitation regarding the Turkish and Cyprus EEZ, and they're willing to do that. But how can you do that when Turkey does not recognize the Republic of Cyprus as like it doesn't exist? So so you got to first recognize and become a country of the 21st century and abiding by international law before you can get to that stage. And it's important to note that Turkey is neither a signatory or a ratifier of the UNCLOS treaty. They use it in the Black Sea, and they try to lay claims to it where they feel is to their advantage. But ultimately, they do not recognize that islands have EEZ or islands have exclusive economic zones. And that's just, fundamentally not what UNCLOS says.
So what can Greek Americans and Jewish Americans do to promote our common interests with the U.S. government?
Well, we've already started to do that. We here at the American Hellenic Institute, with the Conference of Presidents of Major Jewish American Organizations, with B'nai B'rith and others, and with the Order of AHEPA, the largest Greek American grassroots fraternal organization, we've instituted a biannual trip to Greece, Cyprus, and Israel, where we've had, I believe now, 5 such trips to where we visited each country in the region, where we've had discussions with government leaders, and to underscore the importance and premium that we pay on this relationship, not only to the leaders in the region, but to come back and to promote that same message within the U.S. government policy establishment as well. So we are looking to cooperate in all fronts. The 3 countries established the relationship. We want to be there to facilitate, to strengthen it at every level we possibly can. And it's very gratifying to see how well these 3 countries are working together. And we should add, of course, Israel, Egypt is an important component to this as well, and other countries in the region.
So why have the various Christian churches in the U.S. not coalesced and spoken out about Turkey and about discrimination against Christians in the greater Middle East?
It's a very good question. It's not one that I can answer. And make no mistake about it, the Brunson thing was because of the evangelist movement. They had a major role to play in terms of creating the groundswell support on Capitol Hill and with the administration that caused us to act. The point is, if there's enough of that, the needle can be moved. And this was just for one person. And every person is important. Every life is important. And I'm glad that Pastor Brunson was able to be released, which was so unjustifiably incarcerated. But it goes to show the power that we have at the grassroots level to be able to push the needle. But I can't tell you why we can call it collective failure on behalf of all of us who advocate for these issues, that we've not been able to get more cross-sectional support from such institutions and such entities.
So in our last minute here, can you give us a little more information as to where to find some more of your work?
Well, our work is one of continuously bringing awareness to U.S. policymakers regarding the happenings in the region. I travel to Greece in the non-COVID period. I would travel to Greece and Cyprus anywhere between 4 to 6 times a year. And important to that is the defense cooperation. And we want to bring continuously awareness of the importance of the defense cooperation that exists, especially between Greece and the United States, which is at an all-time high. Like I said, I'm not understating when I tell you how important the military facility at Suda Bay is. And we were the ones who pushed for making that facility awareness in Washington. And I continue to visit there at least once a year. I was just there back in September. We saw the investment of the United States looking now in places like Alexandroupoli, a major port facility in northeast Greece, which could be a staging area for transport into Eastern Europe, for transit, for LNG and other energy components, including U.S. military assets. There's been an extension of the defense cooperation agreement between Greece and the United States. It continues to be on the rise, but we need to make members on Capitol Hill especially aware of it. Very few people on Capitol Hill are aware of what is happening in terms of the nuts and bolts and the nuances in the Eastern Mediterranean. Greece, in my opinion, is a formidable mini superpower within the context of the Balkans. They've got 155 F-16s, and to your audience, what does that mean? It means that's the fifth largest fleet of F-16s in the world. And it has an exceptional military, and they are there to support and defend not only their sovereign territory, but always there, okay, to be called upon when needed, okay, in support and defense of U.S. interest, Western interest, and overall, peace, and to provide peace and stability for the region. And these are just not things that enough people are aware of. And obviously, Cyprus plays in that role as well to the best of its capabilities. And I can only imagine how much more Cyprus would be able to do to fulfill its full potential if it was whole, free, and at peace, and not continuously be divided now for over 46 years, which is an anathema and a disgrace, in my opinion, to the international community that has allowed this to continue to happen for as long as it's happened. And I put that really at the doorstep also of U.S. foreign policy that has not pushed this issue forward, where it could have much more easily in years past. Erdoğan and Turkey are much more difficult and a much more complicated dynamics today, but it's not to say that it can still not happen. And of course, the European Union has to also do its share as well. And in some ways, it has more at its disposal through the customs union, trade, and so many other things.
All right, well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've come to the close of our webinar. Thank you again, Mr. Larigakis, for speaking.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It was a real pleasure. I appreciate it.
Of course. For our viewers, please be on the lookout for our weekly webinar offerings email coming out over the weekend. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.